Welcome, Alexa, and thank you for being here to share your birth story today.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm very excited to be sharing it finally.
Yeah, so you are 9 months postpartum with your second baby. I'm just going to
Yes.
do a quick little recap here for people for context. And your first birth was in the hospital. Your first baby's 3.5. You're located here in Toronto, like me. And your first baby's birth was, my understanding was you didn't feel like it was the best experience. And so you decided to prepare differently for your second birth and you chose a home birth this time. And you sent me a few photos of your birth before we started recording. I just checked my email and I was like, wow, these are some powerful, amazing photos. So thank you for sharing. And oh my gosh, there's so much to dive into as it relates to the choice to have a home birth. And you alluded to the fact that you haven't shared your story very much yet. So maybe
Yeah.
we can start there.
Yeah. So with this story or why I haven't shared the story?
Maybe first why you haven't shared it, and then we'll get into the story.
Sure. Yeah, I pretty quickly in my pregnancy, when I started even telling some people, I really wanted to have my second baby at home. Yeah, seeing the color leave from their face, like some of the comments I got back, whether it's like irresponsible or just yeah, just a lot of concern. Like I know it was coming from a good place. I very quickly, my husband and I were like, let's just do the home birth and then we can tell people after. Um, just because, yeah, some of like, yeah, the stigma around it, we just decided to let's just go through the experience and then report back. And it was like unbelievably positive. I just haven't, I don't know, this time around, yeah, I haven't really shared it as much. I've told a couple of family members and close friends, but I haven't shared it as much. I know because people usually open with which hospital did you give birth at? I'm like, oh, I gave them at home. They're like on purpose and they're like so shocked. So I've just been a bit hesitant, and it's actually like a really beautiful, positive story. I just haven't really shared it yet.
Do you feel like there could be an element of because you had this really amazing experience, you don't want to seem like you're bragging about it to anybody?
I would, I don't know if I would use the word bragging, but I have been aware of a little bit of, yeah, I'd say it's like close to that word because I know when most people, like I've noticed most moms that I hang out with or have met through mom groups, a lot of people voluntarily shared like the really like traumatic parts of birth and the really hard parts of birth, which I totally understand. I didn't have the most amazing first time birth experience. So yeah, I do find sometimes I hold back a little bit when people are telling all of their negative things. I find I hold back a little bit, even though I think it's so beneficial for women to hear positive birth stories. It sometimes hasn't felt appropriate in the context because I like truly loved it. And like if I could rate it 5 stars, I would. Like it was awesome. And it had such a big impact on like these past 9 months. Yeah, I do find I have some reservations sometimes with sharing that.
Birth is tricky like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you recognize that, and you're sensitive, you're socially aware, and you don't want to make anyone feel more negative about their negative experience if you're sort of like, I can't relate, you know? So I
Yeah.
understand 100% what you're referring to. It's almost as if we have more space for, unfortunately, the traumatic stories, and those need to be told so
Hmm.
much, for validation, so people can finally feel, heard and process what happened to them. But it's interesting what you mentioned about feeling like you're not only did you receive a bit of judgment for choosing to have a home birth, or maybe I don't know if judgment's the right word, but sort of shocked looks, people who didn't understand. So you're hesitant to share with them that you chose a home birth, and then you're also then hesitant to share you had a positive outcome from your
Yeah.
home birth.
Hmm.
There's so much to unpack here.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So maybe you can share with us a little bit around what made you want to choose a home birth for your second baby.
Yeah, in short, obviously this is like a very thought out, thoughtful process, but I had my first actually in a midwife unit within a hospital. It's the one in Markham Stouffville. But even though like I love my midwives and I love midwifery care, I found even from when I arrived, it felt like very rushed, and I felt just like everyone was trying to rush me. And so because and I won't go into the whole first birth experience because that one's quite long in itself, but the key things, I felt like very disempowered, very rushed. I didn't really feel like anyone was listening, and that I didn't have a ton of control over the situation. So when I got pregnant the second time, I was like, if a way to take out all of those elements is just to be in my own space. So it was a pretty easy, like even before I conceived with my second, I was like, okay, next time around, I'd really like to try in a totally different environment, where I can have a little more like control over the setting. So I'd feel more relaxed and comfortable, essentially.
Mhm. 100%. I mean, I think it's important to mention this is something I say to people as well. Like, you need to give birth in the place where you feel the safest, period,
Hmm.
whatever that looks like for you.
Hmm.
And so it's not about, for anyone listening, there's no agenda here pushing any type of location for birth. What matters is where can you go where you feel safe, validated, heard, respected. And for some people, that looks like a home birth. And so, you know, I do want you to dive a little bit, if you can, into your first birth, if you don't mind, just with respect to, do you have a few moments that you can use as an example where you did feel rushed, as you mentioned, or you did not feel like you were listened to?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I wasn't sure for the constraints of time. I'm happy to because I think it's very educational.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for my first, my water broke. I was 41 weeks. So even already there was the conversation of like I would did ultrasounds to make sure everything's fine, but obviously there's the induction conversation was in there because I was at 41 weeks. But even I was like my water broke first, which I know isn't even super common, but like my water did break, then my contraction started, and like I was in labor. But and like I remember even like walking to the room and like putting my hand on the walls. Like I was in labor, but they were I found because my midwives haven't arrived didn't arrive at the hospital yet, and the staff there really kind of honestly like scared me. They're like, oh, your water's already been broken for like 12 hours. We need to induce you right now. Like it felt very urgent. And like, of course, if I could reverse time and with all the information I know now, I really wish I would have just been like, let's regroup in an hour or 2 hours. Like I felt um, very rushed, even though I was in labor. And I went from feeling, I really didn't actually feel that nervous for my first. I thought I felt really equipped and informed and ready to go. But then once I was there, it was just a whole different situation. Like I felt very rushed. They pushed the Pitocin, like the induction, like right away. And it really came from, it didn't feel like very informed consent at all. It was very like, we need to do this right now. My midwives weren't even there yet. Like I wish I would have, and they knew my ideal too. So they were like, oh, we wish we would have been here a
Hmm.
bit before to help guide the informed consent conversation. Really pushed the Pitocin. I ended up just laboring for another about 12 hours. I tried the nitrous gas, threw up immediately, hated
Oh,
it, did not like that. I tried that for one contraction, was not my jam. I had my doula there. We did all of the pain management. And then there actually was a miscommunication. I remember um there was a point where I like felt like ready to push. Like I felt like I was in now I know that's in that like transition phase. And there was a big miscommunication where between I don't know if it was the nurses or the midwives, but like I hadn't been checked in so long and they were telling me I was like nowhere even close. And I remember I don't know who it was, but one staff member was like, there's no way you're having your baby today. You're for sure going to be another like 10 to 12 hours. So mentally, I was like, I'm done. Like I can't, I've been in labor for over 24 hours. I was like, I mentally could not do another 12 hours. So I was like, I will please take an epidural right now because I was exhausted. I'd been up for 24 hours. I'd been laboring. I was like, oh, if I'm not even close, like
hmm.
I need a break. So this is where the miscommunication was. They gave me the epidural and then I remember where they were like, oh, you're 10 centimeters dilated. There was a whole big miscommunication. And then they're like, yeah, you can push. And so I ended up like pushing right away. Thankfully, the pushing was like, I didn't feel like totally numb everywhere. It's like my initial plan wasn't to get the epidural. Again, like I believe too, there's no right or wrong way to birth or where to birth or anything. It's just preferences and changing the situation as it comes. But like I remember them even kind of having this uh-oh moment. And I even remember seeing my midwife, like one of them being like it was, there was a lot of miscommunication happening. So got the epidural. Thankfully, like I ended up pushing for 30 minutes, like no tearing. Thankfully, like the pushing phase went relatively well. Like the immediate thing, like immediately after went well, like latched right away. Everything else was fine. But I remember even in that first hour post birth, I was like sitting with my midwife. She was like, "This wasn't supposed to happen like this." Like and like I remember having that conversation right away. Thankfully, she was born at oh yeah, and sorry, with that too, I think I said that around like whatever it was, 8, 9, 10 o'clock. My daughter was born before 11. It's like I was there. Like, it's like I went the whole time. And then so for me, that felt it felt a lot of yeah, it felt rushed. It felt not very informed. And like the only things I didn't like about the labor was kind of the environment. It's like it would have been different if we took those elements out. It's like that's why I decided the home birth, because I'm like, we can't have like a rushed accidental induction at home. We can't have a whoopsie like epidural at 10 centimeters at home. It's like that can't happen at home, you know?
Sorry, an accidental induction.
Well,
Just
like
the words that you're choosing are just so outrageous. Like it's outrageous, right?
yeah. So, and I remember like, and I felt really validated. Like, I'm so grateful. I had such a great midwife where like we debriefed so much after of like the points where I didn't feel empowered because again, like technically every, they're like baby was fine. Like I was fine. Like postpartum healing was fine. It's like everything went like smooth, but there was so many moments of like disempowerment that I ruminated for so long. And I actually really struggled with. And that was something that I felt like a lot of people didn't understand. They're like, oh, yours went fine. Like it wasn't like traumatic. And it's like things can go like, okay, of course. It's more how you were treated. It's not what happens.
Yep.
So for me, yeah, those were the moments that only of course in hindsight, it felt like a bit of a tornado during, but like they were really disempowering and it felt not informed at all. And especially I remember like I remember the look on her face, like she's sitting there doing my paperwork, we're chatting. She's like, this is not like this. She's like, I've never seen this happen. She's like, this is not how it was supposed to go.
Okay. So
Yeah.
thank you for very clearly articulating that. I think we all get the gist, and understand why you made the decision that you did to have your second baby at home, who is now 9 months old. So this, we're talking earlier this year,
Mhm.
right? Earlier in 2023. Okay. So let's move on to your home birth. What happened
Yeah.
the second time around?
So totally opposite experience. Same thing. My water broke first, actually, the night before. Actually, I was like in the backyard in the park with my daughter going down the slide. Again, I was almost 41 weeks. So I also was trying to get things going. My mom even was there. She's like, I don't know if you should be doing this. I was like, I think I should be. Like, we need to get this going. Anyways, water broke. And then all night, my contractions were far apart, like 10 minutes apart. I actually had such a kind of fun early labor. I just like took baths. I was so hungry, made sandwiches, like took a bath, made a sandwich, like all night from like 10 p.m. till 7 a.m. I just was like bathing, relaxing. I didn't wake anyone up because it was actually like it was nice to be alone. I went in the bathtub, had some like candles, the lights were off. Like it was a really like special alone time. Like I actually very much enjoyed it. Um, Around 8, 9 in the morning, it started picking up a little bit. So my mom was here. She took my daughter to my in-laws, and then my doula showed up around like 10 or 11. And then we started to actively get things going once my daughter was gone. But it was like enjoyable. I was like, in my comfy, like little black, like maternity stretchy dress. I was like, she got me doing stairs in our townhouse. I was doing like lunges. She was doing some acupuncture. Like it was just like we were chatting, like it was so enjoyable. And this was, yeah, probably around like 11. Um, And then we had a circuit kind of set up in my room. Like I had like a birthing ball. I had like the rebozo, like what I learned from like the push prep course. I like had that over my closet door. I had like a little, yeah, little kind of circuit set up where I could just go and like swing and squat or be on all fours, just doing different things. Um, and it was like, I know people don't usually, I don't know if I should use the word fun, but it's like I was enjoying it. It's like I felt so confident. I felt like so empowered. Of course, contractions and those waves can be intense, but it's like there was time to relax between. I especially loved anytime I was craving anything, my husband would grab me like dark chocolates and dates or a smoothie or a tea. It's like I loved that whatever I needed in that moment, it was like I'll just run to the kitchen and grab it. Like that was so comfortable for me. Yeah, had all the lights off. We had just like the fake little like battery tea light candles everywhere. Um, and it was just like comfortable. It's like that's what I loved. And it was so like silent, like unless I asked a question or really needed input, it was just like silence and me like doing my thing. Um, and yeah, just feeling like really confident and comfortable in like the process that was about to happen. And then my midwife showed up at 2. I had 2 midwives show up at 2 p.m. and I was like 5, 6 centimeters dilated and things were moving along. And I felt like once they arrived, I could like fully relax. Like once the medical professionals were there, I
Mhm.
was like, because they actually were at another birth. So I was like, let's just do this slow until they come. And then
Mhm.
once they were at my house, I was like, okay,
Mhm.
now we can like fully, I like noticed such a like shift once they arrived. I was like, okay, now we can get down to business. But yeah, I just kind of did my circuit, did my like just went into like changed a bunch of positions for a couple hours. And then what I also loved about it the most that was so opposite was I remember being on the ball, and this was actually now in hindsight, it was really close to that transition phase, but I felt like the birthing ball was almost pushing the baby back up. I was like, I couldn't sit on it. But I remember asking, I was like, oh, should I not be on here? And I loved their responses. They were always like close your eyes, like what position do you want to be in, like what do you want to do. They not once were like try all fours, try this, try this. They were just like just move how you want to move. It kept getting put back onto me, which I absolutely loved. And then the point where it started to pick up was I like needed more relief. Like they were doing the hip squeezes and they were really physical, which was awesome. Um, and all the counter pressure and stuff. I hopped into the bath. I felt like I needed some water relief. I hopped into I should also add my like very small bath. The one place upstairs we planned not to deliver. It was the only place we like didn't prepare. We like had, Dextered out the whole room. Everything had like the shower curtains everywhere to protect our carpets
Dexter.
and bed. The midwife actually gave the instructions. They're like, before you arrive, Dexter out the room. It was hilarious. So it's like, that's what we did. We just put the shower curtains everywhere, covered our bed, the floor, protected our carpets. The one place I thought I wouldn't be was the bathroom, but obviously you can't plan everything. And I remember the second I hopped in the tub, I was like, I have to push right now. My washroom is very small. We live in like it's not like my husband and I don't go in there to brush our teeth at the same time, let alone like birth a baby. So it was myself, my husband, 2 midwives and a doula, all somehow were in there. And so I was in the tub and those were, yeah, the photos that I sent. It was like, as soon as I was in there, I have to push now. Like, can we do this in here? Cause it's a small bathroom. Like, I know I want them to have
Mhm.
good like view as well. They told me it was fine. So we maneuvered, I started pushing, and this is like what really stood out. And I found like your course so helpful is like, even, in the peak pain of like the pushing phase, like ring of fire, like huge intensity. I remember like even being able to like relax between those and like, release, relax, kind of regroup between the contractions, between the pushing. Like it was just so powerful to mentally like be able to do that. And I feel like all those resources really helped me. Um, and then yeah, so I started pushing and pretty quickly, and I suspected this before. My daughter wasn't in the best position. And again, my tub's super small, not a great angle. So I remember at one point, my midwife actually was like, can you like stand up and get out? I was like, her head also was like half out at this point. I was like, I have a watermelon like emerging. I remember just being like, no, I can't get up. Like, you're going to have to help me. Like, because
Yeah.
obviously, like, it was like, we were chatty and nice the whole time. But she even said, she's like, well, no, you're in transition when your mood changes. And like, I went from enjoying the labor a ton till obviously it gets intense. Like
Yeah.
that happens. for sure. But I just remember her, that was like when I was very snappy. She was like, "Can you just get up?" I was like, "No, I can't get up. Like, I have a watermelon exiting my body. Like, you're gonna have to help me." But like, and they were amazing. I just remember that was like, obviously it was intense, but I couldn't get up physically. So they got me up and I was pushing, like kind of had my hands on the edge of the tub, push standing for a bit. But my daughter, there was some shoulder dystocia, like she was stuck at her shoulder. So we tried all fours, like on my back. We had to try a bunch of different things because there was definitely an uptick in the urgency since she wasn't in the greatest position. They needed to get her out. But even then, they were like so clear. They're like, okay, we're going to do like this maneuver. We need to get her out faster. And like, even though it was a little more urgent in that moment, like I loved that they took control. It's like I loved that they were like, okay, get on this position. They did some of their maneuvering and they got her out. I only pushed for 14 minutes, which was, I thought it was an hour. I remember being like this, like I remember being shocked when they told me after that was only 14 minutes. Um, but yeah, they did their thing, they took control, helped get her out. And then, so yeah, I ended up actually delivering her in my teeny tiny bathroom floor. Like that's where those pictures are. I'm in my bathroom floor. Um, and then, yeah, then thankfully, like, yeah, she was good. I was good. They moved me back to the bed. They got me back in the bed to deliver the placenta. And yeah, my daughter was born at 4:40. So my midwives were only there. They got there at 2. She was born at 4:40. Um, and then they were just so unbelievably respectful. I didn't expect all this. They showered me off, they got me in a robe, like they just made me feel so great. Like, yeah, yeah, placenta was delivered, like my daughter was latching okay. Like they just everything was so awesome. And like I remember like this will be seared into my brain forever. I remember once they left around 7, sitting there. My husband also ordered like a sushi dinner immediately. So I'm sitting there
Nice.
eating my sushi. And like I don't even like usually like swear, but I remember being like, that was like effing awesome. I was like, I remember telling him, I was like, if I can do that, like I can do anything. And it's like I've never felt like on such a high in my whole life. Like even though again there was that uptick in urgency, it's like it was still like there was no rumination. There was like it's like it just yeah, all of it, the whole experience was like I wouldn't change anything. It was just like so empowering and like yeah, I just remember sitting there being like, I can do anything if I can do that. It's like that was the mentally hardest thing I've ever done in my whole life. It's like everything else is like figure outable. If I can like birth my baby like on the floor in the washroom, everything else is fine. Is kind of
Oh,
how I felt.
shivers. I have shivers just hearing that. And it's just so thank you for reliving that with us and for sharing. And you're so articulate. So I feel like I'm with you, like there right now. The feeling that you have, isn't it so true? And this is something that I have found to be true. I'd love to know your thoughts on it. But you always remember how you were treated. And the impact that birth can have on you really can last for a long time. So, as you mentioned, like now, like I guess I should throw this question to you. How has this impacted how you see yourself, how you see your body? If you can juxtapose how you felt after your first birth to how you felt after your second birth.
Yeah, I definitely struggled mentally after my first birth more because I was ruminating so much on those like little moments of disempowerment that I only really understood once I talked it through with like a therapist and my midwife. It's like I found myself reliving my first birth so much. It's like, oh, what if that happened? Or why did that happen? It's like tons of rumination. So mentally, I'd say I had more postpartum mood changes the first time because of that birth experience. And then, yeah, in contrast with this one, it's like I've done things in my personal, professional life that I wasn't really planning to do. But after that, I was like, it was like, yeah, it just lifted this huge veil of what I thought my abilities were. And I've just gone out after things and done things. And it's been the best year. Like it really has been night and day. It's like no rumination. It's like I like to kind of relive it and tell it because it was so positive and I haven't told it a lot, but like mentally my postpartum experience has been a lot better. Definitely mentally there was no rumination and no struggling with that. I didn't feel like I had to process it as much. And I feel like that too. It's like I found my physical recovery even felt a bit better because I'm sure it's all like a chain reaction. You know, it's my mood's better. So
Mm,
I feel it's easier to exercise and eat better and all of that. It just has such a like snowball effect, I feel like.
100%. Absolutely. And there's also a link in some evidence between Pitocin and postpartum mood disorders. So something that we don't talk about enough either.
Hmm.
And there's data out there. You can analyze the evidence, but it's something that is certainly there's a link, right? So there's so much to talk about. And this is hopefully giving people food for thought. I had a friend of mine recently who's a doctor, and she's a surgeon here in Toronto, and we have kids the exact same age. She was over. We're just like swapping clothes, whatever, as moms do, mom friends do.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, they talk about you on the doctor groups. Like people know about you and like the doctor, because she's in some doctor Facebook groups. She's like, they talk about like birth and the bowel method, but I'm going to be honest with you and tell you something." I was like, "What? Tell me." "You've lost them all with home birth." She's like, "They're all like, oh, that's irresponsible. That's terrible. Why would you ever promote that?" And I thought it was interesting. I didn't get defensive. I go, "Okay, well, thanks for
Mm.
sharing." And it's interesting, probably because I had planned a home birth myself in the pandemic in 2020, had meconium, had to transfer to the hospital. Everything ended up being fine. But,
Hmm.
it's interesting how there still seems to be such a strong negative reaction towards when someone says, "No, I want to have a home birth." It really does feel like it's polarizing for people. And
Very.
to any doctors listening to this, like it's again, just to reiterate, this is not pushing home birth. It's not pushing anything. You're just sharing your story.
Hmm.
And it is, and I did a reel today. It's powerful to feel, or it's possible, I should say, to feel empowered even in a hospital setting. It takes more self-advocating, a lot more, but it is possible. So,
Absolutely.
you
Well,
know,
and even too, some things that happen because like, and even, yeah, and I know I know I'm not like coming across like I'm pushing like a home birth. It's very whatever people want to do. But even like my midwives told me because of the shoulder dystocia and the risk, like they said if I had like, and my baby was 8 pounds 9 ounces, she was like bigger-ish.
Mhm.
Um, but they even said they're like, yeah, the next one, like you're at risk for this again. It's like if I had another one, it's like I might go to a hospital. It's like that's fine. It's like I would actually feel more comfortable knowing maybe there is a bit of a risk. It's like, yeah, I really definitely think it's wherever people feel the safest and can relax with the information they have. And with the information I have now, like maybe I like mine went really well, but yeah, I feel like it's wherever people feel the most comfortable. And like that's what I love, like with all the resources, it's like, all the science around like, yeah, where when you can relax, like the contractions are easier, all that stuff. It's like that's not really told to most people unless they're seeking it out or do some sort of like prenatal courses.
Yeah, I mean, education really is so powerful to prepare your body and your mind. And when I say mind, I mean what you mentioned, being able to relax and not panic in transition when you're like, "I don't want to do this. How am I going to get this out of my body?" Right? Like we all have that moment where you're like, "Okay, no, no, breathe. You can do this." Like you have to check yourself.
Yeah.
Um, because I mean, even with my second knowing all I know, teaching this stuff, I remember being like, "I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore." It's like, you are doing it, honey. Keep going.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely.
So yeah, I think it is absolutely important to talk about it. And hopefully conversations like this help to illuminate everything that's possible. And it takes courage to make a decision that you made, especially against, it sounds like some friends and family members who are a bit like against the decision. So it takes courage to do that.
Yeah, I'd say everybody was very, very nervous. And yeah, once we told just some of our family members in our close circle, that's actually why we decided to stop because I didn't feel like I wanted everybody else's fears projected
Mhm.
onto me. I was like,
Mhm.
let's just, yeah, have the baby and we'll let people know after.
Amazing. Well, you are amazing. And again, thank you for sharing those very powerful photos and for just sharing your story. And it really has been an honor to support you in your birth preparation.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. And yeah, thank you. It was that all the resources in the back end I listened to all of them, and that played a huge role in me feeling comfortable and confident to be able to actually do that at home for sure. And yeah, at home or in a hospital in a different way. I feel like that information, like wherever you are, it's like you can be such a better advocate for yourself when you know more things. Like when you have more information on the different options for sure.
Well, you did that in spades. So again, congratulations. Really, I appreciate you taking the time today and keep harnessing that badass energy in all that you do.